Growing up, my parents always wanted to keep a clean house. In fact, I can clearly remember when I was little, my mom would always say, we have to make sure the house is clean just in case we have guests. Well, that story about my past is the topic today. The topic today is welcome strangers. In Genesis chapter 18, the very first part, we have the story about Abraham who is welcoming three guests into his house. And as you read chapter 18 of Genesis, you hear how far Abraham goes to make these guests feel welcomed. When we talk about welcoming guests, when we talk about as Christians, what should we do? That is our goal. We want to make sure people feel welcomed. We want them to feel at home. I was privileged when I was growing up, the fact that my parents welcomed me to experience different cultures and different people. Uh, when we were stationed in Chanute Air Force Base, I actually remember I had friends who come from different parts of the world. And that continued throughout my life. I met people from different areas, different cultures, different backgrounds. And I always had a way of feeling welcomed, despite the fact that I had to overcome my initial shyness. One of the things that, whenever I think about people welcoming guests or strangers into their home, happens to appear during my life when I just finally moved, college ended, I moved away from home, and I was living on my own. I lived in a little town. Actually, it was in a little town. It was in Collinsville, Illinois, which is a suburb east of St. Louis. And the place where I lived, one block a certain direction, you were in an area where you would have a different culture, different background, and everything. And I remember I was at work one day, and somebody was asking me because they found out that I'd like to walk, and they had said, "Well, what path do you take? What roads do you take?" And I told them that I would go down near where our gym was. I would cross a couple streets, and then I would go up this street, which would take me close to where I lived, my apartment complex. Their face got white, and they said, "Do you realize what color you are?" And I'm like, "What does that have to do with anything?" Because that part of Collinsville is predominantly black. They don't like people with your skin tone there. Now, the person who told me this happened to be the same skin tone that I was. But what shocked me was this person had no idea about the people who lived down that area during that street. Because the very first day that I walked that path, I was felt welcomed. On the porch, about three or four houses down from where I turned onto that street, there was this elderly gentleman, and he was sitting on the porch. The very first thing he said to me is, "Hey, how you doing?" And we talked a little bit. And every single time that I took that path, he'd be on his front porch, or he'd have his friends over, and they would, playing checkers or whatever they were doing on the front porch. And every single day, he made me feel welcomed. Because he made me feel welcomed, and because other people in the community saw his reaction, they also welcomed me. So I never felt like I didn't belong on that street. In fact, I was actually more scared about what happened 2 months after moving into Collinsville. I had joined a gym because I wanted to get back in shape, and this gym had a hot tub. Now, majority of the gyms I've been in before this gym did not have a hot tub. And I knew that basically being in a hot tub would help loosen up sore muscles and bones and all that stuff. So after a long workout, I decided, well, you know what? No one's in this hot tub. I'm going to go ahead and jump in there. Then all of a sudden, three people showed up. These people were basically well known that if these guys are in the hot tub, you don't want to be in the hot tub because um, one of these guys was a retired Russian mobster. You could tell he was uh, Russian mobster because he was very proud of his prison tattoos. Another guy, he was an Italian. If you watch those old mobster movies, gangster movies, and you know you got that Tony guy who's eating the cannoli, that was him. And then you had another guy who you could probably figure out he was probably at one time related to some unorthodox underground uh, businesses of sorts. And so it was kind of an unwritten rule, unspoken rule that whenever these three would in the hot tub, that was their hot tub. You never bothered them. So here I am. I'm this 24-year-old guy, and I'm in this hot tub, and these three guys all of a sudden appear out of nowhere, out of the locker room, and they're coming towards the hot tub. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm in their hot tub. The third guy, he was like, no, no, it's okay, son. It's okay. You can stay there. And the Russian, he came up to me and he was like, nice to meet you. These three guys who had a reputation for being very tough and being the type of people where you didn't bother them whenever they were doing business were the most welcoming three guys in the world. In fact, they would sit around the hot tub, and every so often they would say, you know, to me, hey, young man, what do you think about this? Do you think that this would change? And all that stuff. Now, they were obviously well retired, and they didn't talk about anything that was criminal activity of sorts. But you could tell that they learned a lesson from their hard life. They learned that what they were searching for, their goal when they were young, when they were 20s, in their 19s, 20s, 30s, wasn't really what they wanted to do. And it took them time after they left back their past to finally find what they truly desired. And that was lifelong friendship. In fact, these guys, they could have actually been enemies at one time. But they discovered that if they welcomed somebody who's from a different thing, someone from a different area, they would find lifelong friendships. In fact, one of those three guys actually happened to be friends with the grandfatherly-like guy on the stoop on that one street. So the very next day, I'm walking my path, I'm jogging up the hill, and he stops me and he goes, hey, I heard you met the three wise men, which was kind of a joke back then. And I was like, yeah, I was totally scared when I first met them. And he goes, they do that to everybody. We need to welcome people. We need to make people feel like they're welcomed. Abraham, when those three strangers, he never knew who they were. When they came in, he offered them food. He offered them shelter. He gave the best of what he had because he wanted to share it. The guy that was on that street, on the stoop, he wanted me to feel welcomed. He didn't want me to feel like I'm a stranger, that I didn't belong anywhere. Because I showed them respect, they're going to show me respect. We treat each other like we're equals. The three guys in that hot tub, they could have easily let me go about my way, but they wanted me to feel welcomed. They didn't want me to feel that I shouldn't be anywhere. That's what God wants us to do. He wants us to make sure that we make anyone that we come in contact with feel welcomed. In our lives, in our groups, we should not feel like we don't belong somewhere. God and Jesus put along this path for us to make sure that we treat each other like brothers and sisters. So as you go about your day, you go about your week, your month, remember, God or somebody welcomed you into their lives. Don't be afraid to welcome somebody else into yours. Thank you, and God bless you.